Josh Haston here on the Land of Israel Network at thelandofisrael.com, coming to you from Gush Etzion, Israel. It is Sunday, March the 4th, 2018, the 17th of Adar, 5778 on the Hebrew calendar. Hope you're doing well in your part of the world. Get in touch with me during the week, Josh at thelandofisrael.com. On Facebook, it's Joshua Haston, and on Twitter, at Josh Haston. Hope everyone had a joyous Purim festival wherever you are in the world. I know it was a lot of fun here in Israel. It's just a big, huge celebration and party wherever you are. You have the cities outside of Jerusalem. We celebrated Wednesday night and Thursday. Then the party continues in Jerusalem on Shushan Purim Thursday night and Friday. This was like a rare long weekend here in the state of Israel because we work on Sundays. So this was Thursday, Friday, Shabbat, just rolling into each other, all of the happiness, celebrating our salvation with our enemies. And it could be, in the times of the evil Haman from the Purim story, or here in the world today, so many elements out there trying to eradicate the Jewish people, either physically or spiritually, whatever the case may be. Nothing has really changed in thousands of years of Jewish history, unfortunately. But thank God we have a state of Israel today. We have the powerful IDF, and this is the greatest time in the history of the world to be Jewish, and certainly a great time to be here in the land of Israel. Again, here, I hope you're doing well. I want to give a shout out to some of our Land of Israel show hosts who are now in Washington, D.C. at the AIPAC Conference, the one and only Eve Harrow and our very own Yishai Fleischer, wishing them well. As far as I know, those are the two who are over there in Washington with 18,000 other pro-Israel advocates. And I know Eve and Yishai are hosting a separate, a separate event coinciding with AIPAC to talk about the importance of life in Judea and Samaria, to share some of the realities of the situation here. Now, getting to some news here, but before so, I want to let you know, and hopefully if everything goes well, we're going to have Carolyn Glick, the one and only Carolyn Glick, on the show in just a few minutes, senior contributing editor at the Jerusalem Post, also author of The Israeli Solution, a one-state plan for peace in the Middle East. She also writes now for Breitbart, the one and only Carolyn Glick, hopefully after the break. So I started off talking about Purim and how they try to annihilate us. And that leads into our first news item of the day. Today on Sunday, this morning, a terrorist, an Arab with Israeli citizenship, drove his car into a border policeman near the market in the town of Akko. That's in northern Israel. And then continued on his rampage, running into two other soldiers near the Akko train station. A fourth person, a 51-year-old, was also wounded in the leg. And you can see this horrifying, it is a very graphic footage you can see of some of this attack, at least the first person being hit. You can see it on my Facebook page and in others, and in other sources from Closed Circuit TV. But thank God, all with light injuries. The driver was shot. The Israeli Arab driver was shot, this terrorist jihadist, by a bystander. He was neutralized in serious to critical condition, taken to a hospital in Nahariya, along with the four wounded. The irony of that, but I don't know at this point if it was just a civilian who shot him, if it was an army officer or a policeman who shot him, but a bystander did shoot this terrorist. Initially, police weren't 100% sure. It wasn't confirmed, but it has been confirmed here as I broadcast Sunday late afternoon Israel time that this, in fact, was a terrorist attack, a jihadist attack, a deliberate attack trying to murder Israelis in uniform, IDF soldiers and police in uniform. But thank God, just light injuries from what we know here on Sunday. Now, in other news, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu last night, Saturday night, left for Washington, where he will address the AIPAC Policy Conference and also will meet with President Donald Trump. He said the following before getting on his plane, quote, "Tonight I am leaving on an important visit to the U.S. where I will meet with President Donald Trump and address the annual AIPAC Policy Conference. In the conversation with the president, I will thank him on behalf of the Israeli people for moving the American embassy to Jerusalem in honor of the State of Israel's 70th Independence Day." Netanyahu also added, "First and foremost, I will discuss Iran with the president ahead of the decision on the nuclear program. We will discuss Iranian aggression in our region in general and regarding the Iranian nuclear program in particular. I will also discuss with the president about advancing the peace process." And we'll have to see what type of peace process the Americans are putting together. Different reports circulating about that peace process, and I don't want to speculate, so I don't want to get into different rumors until we actually see in black and white what the U.S. has in mind. And hopefully it will be much better than other plans. But regardless of what comes out, I'm sure the Palestinian Authority will reject those plans. And sometimes you have to look at it as a positive scenario for the Palestinian Authority to reject those plans, because some of them call for extreme Israeli concessions, giving up Israeli territory, throwing Israelis out of their homes, which should never happen. That being said, the result, usually when these peace plans come and go, is that the Arabs, the jihadists, start attacking because they're not happy with the plan, they don't get what they want, they don't accept the plan, and then they turn against Israel and start attacking Israelis. So I hope we're not going down this same path once again, as we have done so many times since the Oslo Accords were introduced all the way back in 1993. Hopefully it's not the case this time. Definitely want to thank President Trump for his support in terms of Jerusalem and moving the embassy, but we'll have to be a little bit cautious when it comes to this new plan, since we've seen that none of them have worked in the past, because the Palestinian Authority, or Hamas, or whoever you want to call it, whatever entity exists over there, does not want a Jewish state of Israel in any form. Not Tel Aviv, not Haifa, not in any shape or form. So while the Prime Minister is over there meeting with President Trump, issues here on the political front, of course, we've brought this up. We'll talk about it hopefully with Carolyn Glick, how the Prime Minister was questioned on Friday by police in regard to what is known as Case 4000, and there are 4 different cases at least where people are accusing the Prime Minister of all different types of irregularities and what have you, to put it mildly. We'll speak to that. We'll speak on that topic with Carolyn Glick in just a few minutes, but at the same time, there are sources, according to Israel National News, Arutz Sheva, sources in the government coalition saying that Israel may go to elections this June, here in 2018, instead of as expected in November of 2019, initially reported by Channel 2. It all has to do with a draft of actually it's called the draft law. It has to do with the Haredi yeshiva students serving in the army. You have the religious parties, the Haredi parties, who want exemptions for Haredi yeshiva students, deferring army services, and you have many on the other in the other parties within the coalition demanding that everyone serve. So it's much more complicated than that. But the bottom line is this could actually lead to a huge coalition crisis, and we could be seeing elections in June over this issue of Haredi ultra-Orthodox IDF service. We'll have to see how it plays out. The Prime Minister has said time and time again that this government will last until November 2019. He said it even with all of the various accusations levied against him, and he continues to remain steadfast in that regard, even with this potential coalition crisis over ultra-Orthodox Israelis serving in the army. We'll ask Carolyn about this, and it remains to be seen what is going to happen in terms of the current government. Switching gears, in other news last night, security forces, including IDF and Israeli police forces conducted a large-scale crackdown on attempts by PA Arabs to illegally enter pre-1967 Israel. During the operation, forces conducted ambushes leading to the arrest of 40 PA residents. Those are people who have crossed into pre-1967 Israel illegally, and 10 out of them are Arabs suspected of terror-related activity against civilians and security forces. Suspects transferred over for interrogation, this according to Israel National News. And again, we often only hear about the ones that got away or the attacks that actually happened, and that's how we led the show off today, talking about a terror attack, but can't begin to tell you how many attacks are thwarted by the security forces here, preventing illegal Arabs entering into certain areas in southern Judea. And so many go unreported, and we may never know how many, for security reasons and interrogation reasons, we may never know how many actual attacks are thwarted each and every day. So bottom line is we have to be thankful for our IDF and our police and everyone else who ensures our safety here in Israel each and every day. But just to let you have a grasp on the type of evil that we are dealing with, in this case Hamas, reported by the Jerusalem Post, a video has circulated allegedly showing Hamas operatives stealing electricity from civilians in Gaza, civilian institutions, and diverting them toward their terror needs. It was reported that, according to the J Post, that Hamas militants reached the Gaza Strip border fence at 4:30 on Friday. They were spotted in an area where there's an electricity line, which is supposed to be intended for use in hospitals and schools in the city of Khan Yunis in southern Gaza. Nevertheless, these Hamas terrorists diverting these electricity lines to finance and to fund and to carry out their terror activities, whether, I don't know what it could be, building rockets, or maybe they need more electricity down in these tunnels, these cross-border tunnels into Israel. Whatever the case is, caught red-handed, caught on video here, reported to the J Post, originally posted on the Facebook page by Major General Yoav Mordechai, the coordinator of government activity in the territories. There you have it, folks. That is, when people get upset about, Israel and the blockades in Gaza and whatnot, and accuse Israel of all these horrible things. Well, here you have Hamas stealing electricity from their own people, diverting it for terror purposes, and of course, for years and years, launching rockets at Israel, hidden behind their own populations. Who is the bad guy here? We're going to leave you on that note and take a short break, coming back with Carolyn Glick, the one and only. So don't go anywhere. My name is Josh Haston. This is Israel Uncensored on the Land of Israel Network at thelandofisrael.com. Get in touch with me during the week, Josh at thelandofisrael.com. On Facebook, it's Joshua Haston, and on Twitter at Josh Haston. Carolyn Glick when we come back.
It's much more real than any reality show. It's much more dramatic than any drama. It's much more funny than any comedy. It's like a game show, but it's no game. It's our lives.
Listen to Inside Israel Today with Gil Hoffman, political correspondent for the Jerusalem Post, every week on thelandofisrael.com.
And we are back, Israel Uncensored, Land of Israel Network at thelandofisrael.com. Josh Haston here. Hope you're doing well in your part of the world. It is my honor to have the one and only Carolyn Glick, senior contributing editor at the Jerusalem Post, author of The Israeli Solution, a one-state plan for peace in the Middle East, and now, brand new, senior columnist at Breitbart. If you didn't get that memo, she's now writing for Breitbart as well. Carolyn, always a pleasure to have you on the show.
Hi, great to be with you, Josh.
We're here in beautiful Gush Etzion, and I wanted to talk to Carolyn about everything going on here politically in the world. The Prime Minister left last night for 5 days. He's in the U.S. meeting with President Donald Trump, also speaking at the AIPAC conference. What can we expect from this particular trip, Carolyn?
I think that the main thing that we're going to see being discussed, or not see being discussed, but will be discussed between Prime Minister Netanyahu and President Trump is the fact that the United States has a completely incoherent and really damaging policy towards Iran, particularly in Iran and in Syria. And I think that those are probably the fact that the Trump administration has not managed to put together, let alone implement, a coherent policy regarding Iran, and is in fact implementing a bad policy regarding Iran, is probably going to be on the top of their agenda.
And in terms of the Israeli-Palestinian, if you will, situation, there have been different rumors floating that this peace process written by Jared Kushner and others is about to be introduced. Any truth to some of these rumors, as far as you know? Talk about a capital of Palestine in East Jerusalem. I mean, it would seem kind of contradictory in terms of everything we've seen until now. Do we know anything about what can be expected once this policy paper, if you will, is released?
You're in a way, everybody's guess is as good as everybody else's on this, because the administration really has been putting out so many contradictory positions. At the same time, I think, these ideas that, they're going to betray Israel now are simply not credible, given that President Trump not only announced that he is recognizing Jerusalem as Israel's capital, he announced that on Yom Ha'atzmaut, Israel's 70th Independence Day, he's actually opening the U.S. Embassy in Jerusalem. So at least on one very significant issue, he is not only talking the talk, he's walking the walk. So I think that it's very important to give the administration a bit of the benefit of the doubt and say, let's wait and see, instead of, everybody just joining in group hysteria over every report from whatever media organ. Let's just wait and see. We have our positions. Obviously, if they come out with something that's antithetical to our positions, we'll criticize them for doing so. But at this point, I think it's premature to say, the sky has fallen.
At the same time, the Prime Minister this past Friday, investigated again by police, in this case in regard to what is called Case 4000. And, of course, now you have at least 4, if not more, cases open against the Prime Minister being investigated. Your paper, the Jerusalem Post, in one of the columns, I can't remember which one, there was a few talking about it over the weekend in the newspaper, saying that this past Friday, 2 days ago, was the most critical day for Prime Minister Netanyahu. Can you just explain a little bit really what's going on here in terms of all these cases now open against the Prime Minister, talking about a possible indictment and everything going on? What's really going on behind the scenes here?
Look, I think that it was really the police's moment of truth, and I think that they didn't do very well in it, because what we're seeing with all of these cases, including the latest one, which is an investigation of Netanyahu's policies regarding Bezeq, the telecommunication company here, and yes, the satellite television provider, is that what the police are really investigating are Netanyahu's policies that are totally legitimate policies, that are totally legal policies, that advance the public agenda, and are asking why he didn't pursue other policies which may be equally legitimate and may also advance the public's interest. In other words, they're criminalizing a policy dispute. And I think that the more information that we receive about all of these different probes, it's very clear that that's all that's being investigated. No, there's another thing that's being investigated, which is the police's presumption that any media organ that even considers giving positive coverage to the Prime Minister must be corrupt and must have had either extended a bribe to the Prime Minister or been bribed by him. And these are just preposterous presumptions that lay at the core of all of the police's investigations of Netanyahu. So as I wrote in my column in the Friday Post and in Friday's Ma'ariv, there's no there. And these investigations are truly distressing for anybody who cares about Israel's basic values, democracy, the rule of law, and all the rest of it. And I think that we're going to see more and more as the smoke clears, either that our law enforcement and legal legal apparatuses in Israel are really corrupt and have to be overhauled, or we're going to see Netanyahu falsely and wrongly indicted. So I can't say too strongly how up in arms I am about everything that's going on here, and I think that everybody who cares about Israeli democracy and the rule of law should really be up in arms over what seems to be a very scandalous police investigation against the Prime Minister.
I mean, we just had, as you mentioned, the judicial system. I mean, there was just a scandal involving a judge I don't know if you call it, the legal term, is it tampering or having WhatsApp conversations with a prosecuting attorney in a different case?
No, it was in a case very much related to the Bezic.
That's right.
The Bezic-Walla probe, and what you see is that this corrupt police investigation that's trying to criminalize Netanyahu's very lawful and legitimate policy making is causing corruption at the edges to already be exposed to the public of the judiciary and the legal community. Because what we saw there was a magistrate's judge deciding a judgment together with a prosecuting attorney or an investigator from the Securities Exchange Commission that determined already the duration of suspects in the cases, continued remand to custody under investigation, so that their attorneys didn't have a chance to argue their cases. She was making an ex parte decision without giving them the benefit of due process. So this was clearly a criminal act by the judge, and yet there was a determination by the vice president of the Supreme Court not to prosecute her. So this was really corrupt, and there's no other way of looking at it. And again, this wouldn't be going on at all if you didn't have this underlying investigation of the prime minister, which the judge and the prosecutor themselves acknowledged in their WhatsApp discussion, that the police is completely out of control and is just out for blood and not interested in stopping or listening to reason.
See, that story actually makes me think of something unrelated to this specific issue of the prime minister and all these cases against him. It makes me think of Netiv Avot. It makes me think, like, here you have which seems like a completely absurd scenario where 15 houses and 2 other structures slated for demolition. And I didn't say this yet on the show, but the court actually is now allowing the residents to live in those 15 houses for another 3 months. It's been pushed off, the demolition of the Netiv Avot, so people should know that. But on the other hand, it makes me question whether in the first place the court had the right, or if we're actually seeing justice here in terms of that order, the initial order to destroy the 15 houses, which most likely, unless barring some sort of miracle, will happen in 3 months. I mean, I've lost faith in the system, and I would assume many others have as well.
Look, I mean, the truth is that you see a lot of, obviously, you're right, the Netiv Avot case is a case in point in the absence of justice in the justice system in Israel and of the prejudicial enforcement of law in Israel towards specific groups that are politically out of favor with the legal apparatus, which is very distressing. We saw it very clearly in 2005 during the destruction of Gush Katif in the Gaza Strip, where the 10,000 Israeli citizens, law-abiding citizens, were denied basic due process and property rights for no reason by the courts, by the police. They were denied the right to protest. All of these are basic human rights, and the court repeatedly sided with the state against its citizens while they were trouncing their basic civil rights.
Yeah, definitely. For me personally, the Netiv Avot situation, and of course, being a resident of Elazar, and for all of us here in the Gush. So just to stress that it's been pushed off, the demolition of the house is pushed off for 3 months, but it looks like in 3 months, unless barring I don't know what, it looks like it may happen, but at least they're not pulling kids out of school in the middle of the year. I mean, there are some positives, and there was a celebratory feeling over Purim in the Netiv Avot neighborhood, specifically as a result of the houses being pushed off, but I don't see the justice in destroying 15 homes. One last question here, going back to politics and the prime minister, as he is now headed towards AIPAC and meeting with President Trump. Talk, of course, in the paper over the weekend about the possibility of early elections, a coalition crisis, all having to do with the issue of Haredi IDF service, and it's a complicated issue, but bottom line is this could possibly lead to elections in June of 2018 this year instead of the scheduled election of November 2019. What are your thoughts? Do you think we're actually headed towards elections? Will there be early elections? The Prime Minister has said over and over and over again, my government will last its full term, but now it seems to be really in question.
It does, in fact, seem to be in question because basically, you have a coalition government that's comprised of a lot of sectoral parties that when they decide that they want to climb up on a high limb of a tree, it's very difficult to get them down, both because now that once they make the decision, like the ultra-Orthodox party has made in relation to the draft law for Haredi young men, they what are they supposed to say to their voters afterwards? No, we decided we'll give up on you. So that once they made this a condition for remaining in the coalition, it's hard to see how they climb down from that tree that they've just gone out on. And so now you kind of see this sort of game of chicken that's being played by the ultra-Orthodox parties on the one hand, and the finance minister Moshe Kachlon from the Kulanu party and defense minister Avigdor Lieberman from his Yisrael Beitenu party. It's going to be very difficult to get them off of these trees, and as a result, I think that, yes, the commentators are right on this. It's very hard to see how we avoid an election, which, by the way, it would be a very beneficial thing for Likud, which is, at each passing week of these investigations mounting against him, they seem to be gaining in the polls 2 seats per week.
Yeah, the irony of it, despite all of this surrounding the prime minister, they're gaining more popularity.
But it's not ironic. I mean, it shows that the sense that you and I have that there's something fundamentally broken in our justice system and in our law enforcement system in Israel is shared by a very large majority of Israelis. And so the visceral response to these very prejudicial investigations that are going on now, that are dominating the news coverage, is that this whole system is corrupt, and that we're not willing to give up on the Prime Minister, who has been doing a pretty good job, and certainly the public views him as the most competent leader to lead this country at this hour, and the public views what's going on now as an attempt to steal the leader away from the people.
Like him or not, no doubt in my mind, Prime Minister Netanyahu is a master politician, and
he's got a lot of really good luck too, in a lot of ways. A lot of bad luck in a lot of ways, but also a lot of good luck in a lot of ways.
He's been around for a long time, and
it's hard to see us getting rid of him anytime soon.
Seriously, let's see if he can somehow pull this one off, preventing early elections and not getting
going to early elections and
getting
getting 45 mandates,
and getting even more mandates this time around, and being able to cope with all of these different investigations against him. Time will tell, but keep it here at the Land of Israel Network, and we'll have you covered on all of these different stories. The one and only Carolyn Glick, senior contributing editor, Jerusalem Post, author of The Israeli Solution, a one-state plan for peace in the Middle East. And if you haven't read that book by now, then I don't know where have you been. You should definitely have read that by now. Also now writing for Breitbart, so check her out. Thanks, Carolyn, for your time. All the best, and let's talk again soon.
Okay, great.
And that's going to do it for today, folks, here on Israel Uncensored, Land of Israel Network at thelandofisrael.com. My name is Josh Haston. Of course, you can always be in touch with you during the week. Josh at thelandofisrael.com, on Facebook, Joshua Haston, and on Twitter at Josh Haston. It is spring here in beautiful Gush Etzion and in Israel. I hear it's even going to get up to like 86 degrees on the coast by Thursday, and it's only March. So if you're freezing somewhere, and I know you are on the East Coast in the U.S. and in England and wherever you are, come to Israel. Come home to Israel and check it out. That'll do it for today. Most importantly, between now and when we talk again next week, everyone out there in the wonderful world of ours, be safe. Shalom, shalom from Gush Etzion.